Welcome back to Never Done Ask with me, John Martin, and we have another station review. Following on from Chester, we are today in Derbyshire and the East Midland Run station of Chesterfield. If you think you see a pattern in where I am going and you know what's next, then leave your guess in the comments, and if you get it right, I'll pin the post and give you a shout out. Chesterfield Station is reached from Crow Lane. The station itself is on the eastern edge of the town. The town centre is to the southwest. The River Rother flows underneath the station. Tapton is to the north. Spittal to the south. Chesterfield is on the Midland Main Line between Derby and Sheffield. Dronford is 5 and a bit miles to the north. My data site says that Derby is just over 24 to the south. However, Belper is the next station south on the line. I thought this was in there because no direct trains run between the stations. However, there is one train a day that does call at both Chesterfield and Belper. Anyway, Belper is just under 16.5 miles away. We also have a direct line to Nottingham, with Alfriston just over 10 miles away. To the north, there is a generally now only freight line that goes towards Staveley. Both times I have visited this station, it's been to catch a train down this line to Barrow Hill Roundhouse. Chesterfield has been served by rail since nearly the very beginning of the Great Railway Age. The town's first station opened on the 11th of July 1840, when the North Midland Railway inaugurated its line between Derby and Leeds. This was one of the pioneering trunk railways of Britain and was engineered under the direction of celebrated railway engineer George Stephenson, who lived for many years at nearby Tapton House. The original Chesterfield station stood slightly to the north of the present site and was built in an attractive Jacobean style, reflecting the grand architectural ambitions of the early railway companies. The railway quickly proved successful, but by the 1860s, increased traffic demanded a larger station and a better route through the town. The Midland Railway, which had absorbed the North Midland Railway in 1844 as the formation, constructed a new line into Sheffield known as the New Road. Yes, Big Daddy Railways had his policies of let's follow the river valleys and avoid towns where possible. That included Sheffield. The people of Sheffield brought Joseph Locke in to argue that railways should in fact go through towns, but Joseph Locke lost the argument. Anyway, the new road was built, and as part of this project, the completely new Chesterfield station was built short distance to the south of the original. This replacement station opened in 1870 and was designed by Midland Railways architect John Holloway Saunders. It is on that site that Chesterfield station remains today. During the final decades of the 19th century, Chesterfield became one of the few towns in Britain to be served by 3 competing railway companies. The first challenger was in 1892, when the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway opened its route through the town. Just a few years later, in 1897, the Lancashire, Derbyshire and East Coast Railway reached Chesterfield from the east, giving the town completely 3 separate passenger stations, each operated by a different company. Meanwhile, the Midland Railway station continued to develop as the town's principal railway hub. Following the Railways Act of 1921, Midland Railway became part of the newly formed London, Midland and Scottish Railway, better known as the LMS. From 1923, nationalisation followed on the 1st of January 1948, and the station passed into the ownership of British Railways. Throughout the steam era, Chesterfield was an important stopping point on the Midland Main Line, handling express service between London, Sheffield and the north, alongside a busy mix of local passenger and freight traffic. The station itself underwent a major transformation in the 1960s. Victorian buildings were demolished and replaced in 1963 with a more modern structure designed to meet the challenging needs of British Rail, which basically meant it needed to be cheap. While functional, this rebuilding removed much of the station's original Midland Railway character. Privatisation of the railways during the 1990s brought change of ownership, infrastructure passed to Railtrack and then Network Rail, and station operations were transferred to Midland Main Line in 1996. Around this time, the 1960s station buildings were themselves largely demolished and replaced with the modern passenger facilities today. Operation later transferred to East Midlands Trains in 2007 before the present operator, East Midlands Railway, in 2019, while Network Railways retained the ownership of the station infrastructure. Although Chesterfield now just has one station, as we said, there was three to choose from at the time. One of the lost stations was Chesterfield Central, opened by the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway when that company renamed itself the Great Central. In 1897, the station became part of what would become Britain's last great main line to London. Originally known as Chesterfield, it was renamed Chesterfield Central in 1907 to avoid confusion with the Midland Railway Station. Generally, Great Central stations always got themselves named Central. Despite this impressive route, it never attracted anything like the passenger numbers enjoyed by the Midland Station. Following nationalisation, it became part of British Railway before closing on the 4th of March 1963. The station was demolished during the 1970s to make way for Chesterfield's Inner Relief Road. Although the former Great Central Tunnel beneath the town still survives, sealed at one end, as a hidden reminder of the line that passed through the streets. The other lost station was Chesterfield Marketplace, which opened on the 8th of March 1897 as the headquarters of the ambitious Lancashire, Derbyshire and East Coast Railway, which oddly the Manchester, Lincolnshire, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway is also one that's trying to link basically the East Coast with Lancashire. Although this company had grand plans to link Lancashire with the East Coast port, most of its ambitions were never realised. In 1907, the troubled railway was absorbed by the Great Central, and the station was renamed Chesterfield Marketplace. Passenger services steadily declined, particularly after the Second World War, and concerns over the condition of the Bolsover Tunnel and other structures made continued operation uneconomic. Passenger services ceased in 3rd of December 1951, while goods traffic remained till 4th of March 1957. The station building survived for some years as commercial premises before being demolished in the early 1970s, bringing the end to the last remaining visible chapter of the Lancashire, Derbyshire and East Coast Railway, in Chesterfield at least. Our last great bastion of civil service nobility, the Department for Transport Classification Team, put this station as a C1 category, an important feeder station. We have 3 platforms here. Platform 1 is a side platform with the main station building on. It serves northbound trains and is 212 metres long. Platforms 2 and 3 form an island platform. Platform 2 is the main southbound platform and is 204 metres long. Platform 3 is a very bare bones platform stretching out to the south of the station on the slow loop line. Only an occasional train stop here, but it is 240 metres long. There's also a random short siding that stops just before the south end of platform 1. The platforms are linked by a subway, accessible by steps and a lift. Marks for services, 6 out of 10. 3 railway companies operate trains here. East Midlands Trains run the express service between Sheffield and London St Pancras. Sheffield is 11 minutes away, Derby is 20, Leicester is 40, and St Pancras about an hour 55. This is on the fastest service, as stopping patterns vary, including that evening service I mentioned to Belper, which is 12 minutes away. East Midlands also run the Liverpool Lime Street to Norwich service. In Manchester Piccadilly is an hour 15. Liverpool Lime Street is just over 2 hours. Nottingham, where the train splits, is just under 40 minutes away. Peterborough is an hour 50. Norwich is 3 hours 20. Northern run a service between Leeds and Nottingham. Leeds is an hour 20. Cross country run Scotland to Southwest services. Leeds is 55 minutes or so. Newcastle is about 2.5 hours. Edinburgh is about 4 hours. Those services extend to Glasgow, which is 5 hours 10. Birmingham is an hour away. Gloucester is an hour 50, where some services split. One leg will then go to Cardiff, which is 3 hours away. The other leg to Plymouth. Bristol is 2 hours 40. Plymouth 4 hours 40. From the 24-25 figures, we find the most popular destination as Sheffield, with 241,933 journeys. This is followed by St Pancras, Nottingham, Derby, and Manchester Piccadilly. Chesterfield had 1,820,668 entries and exits, which works out at an average of 4,988 passengers a day. With 1,059 scheduled services per week, this works out to just over 33 passengers per service. However, once we add in the people who change trains here, we get a daily average of 5,468 passengers with 39.5 passengers per service. Passenger numbers are increasing, but they haven't reached the pre-COVID levels. Marks for onward travel, 2 out of 5. We have 4 bus routes serving the station: the 54, the 170, the red, and the blue. The 54 runs every quarter of an hour from Chesterfield town centre to Cray Cross, south of the town. The 170 is an hourly bus from the station to Bakewell in the Peaks. The blue is a hourly sightseeing bus around the Peak District, but only an early morning bus and an evening bus serve Chesterfield. The red is a similar sightseeing bus, but only some of the morning services start from Chesterfield. The 74, 74A, 77 and 77A run from nearby Brewery Street. The 74 and 74A run eastwards towards Maston Moor. Each of these an hourly service. Together they give a half-hourly service. 77 runs hourly to Worksop, with the 77A taking over in the evenings. Marks for accessibility, 10 out of 10. We have a fully staffed station. Platform 1 is level with the entrance. The island platforms 2 and 3 are reached via the subway, and there are lifts. Now here's when I have the accessibility puzzle. You see, I was here on a fringe trip from the Community Rail Awards, and the day after the awards night, so people had their wheeled suitcases, and one woman was struggling with her suitcase, but she was also afraid of lifts. So I did my good Samaritan thing of helping her with a suitcase on the steps, as I only had a backpack and was probably 10 years younger than anybody else on the trip. But is it fair on the rest of the trip if the station has offered you an accessible route and you refuse to use it? Should Chesterfield have invested on Star Trek transporter technology? Anyway, there are indicators here. There are announcements. We even have an RNIB map for all. We're all good here, apart from annoying people. Marks for station facilities, 5 out of 10. There is a big modern booking hall with cafe and newsagents in. Both main platforms have waiting rooms. There are canopies and seating both undercover and in the open. There are also vending machines on the platforms. Platform 3 only has a couple of bus stop shelters. That diligent database of dubious details, the National Rail website, says there are 431 parking spaces, 21 of them accessible. There are both long stay and short stay car parks. There are also 80 bike parking spaces, which is nice. Marks for care and character, 14 out of 20. It needs to be admitted I didn't see the station at its best. The OG Platform 3 used to be a bay platform, but that's long disused now, and the Friends Group are turning it into a garden. It's a massive effort in connection with East Midlands trains. They've got contractors in, and I assume if I visit again, it will be in full bloom, but it wasn't when I visited. And what I can say is that talking to the Friends Group, they really care, and they're really proud of their station. I think we can ignore Platform 3. In general, it's very little used, it's got little to commend it, and we can concentrate on the main building and the 2 main platforms. Despite this station being new, this station has both character and care. The columns on the platforms were their helix design and massive to the character, and the canopies to the whole belie the age of the station. The station building has a pleasing wave shape to the roofline. The subway isn't decaying, and honestly, I wouldn't have thought I had to state this, but it doesn't seem at risk of regular flooding. Cheers, Carnforth. It was nice that I complained that Carnforth Station looked like it was going to had warnings about flooding, and then the week after I published, Carnforth Station floods. Anyway, the walls of this tunnel could do with a bit of a clean though. Outside the station, there's a statue to Big Daddy Railways, George Stephenson, who spent his final years in Chesterfield. Marks for nearby things, 5 out of 10. This Chesterfield station, sitting at the bottom of the hill, is only just above the river, and it's a bit of a walk from the town centre itself, and of course the wonky church. Between the station and the centre is a whole patch of old railway land that's been taken over by bypasses and concrete. After our trip to Barrow Hill, we came back to Chesterfield to visit George Stephenson's tomb at a church a short walk away. Well, that was the plan. It turns out that when the majority of the trip are hectogenarians, lugging wheel suitcases, and everything is uphill, nothing is a short walk. Big Daddy Railways is buried in a fairly inconspicuous grave behind the nave of the Holy Trinity Church. It isn't that far. And visiting for Railway 200, the church put on an exhibition for Chesterfield's adopted son. Points of interest aren't out of reach here, but they aren't close and the hills aren't gentle. And it's a 1960s road layout that puts people at the lowest priority. Next to the station is an iron bridge over the river. Google user Jay Green gives it a 3-star review as it's not the best bridge, but serves its purpose as a bridge. Overall, we have 42 out of 65, which comes out at 65%. I'm generally reluctant to head to the new station until they have time to bed in, get used, and develop that character. This station is an example of making the best use of a new build, and which the station is designed to make catch the train as easy as possible, but it doesn't mean you should ignore the charm. We have a good service from here. I'm not mad about the surrounding area, which is very much the domain of the car. Yes, this does have quite a lot of car parking space, but what it doesn't really have is a huge amount of regular bus services from around the area. If there were more bus services serving the station, they probably wouldn't need to have such a bigger car park. Thank you once again for watching as I travel around the country. Please like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified of the next station review.